Well, Kara, that was great. That was Brandon Nixon with Update Promise, who's a real big supporter of our events and the Fixed Ops Roundtable. What'd you think?
I thought he was amazing.
Actually, his dad, Curtis Nixon, who is the founder of that company, has been doing all the original Fixed Ops Roundtables, and now it looks like Brandon's taking over more and more. So it's great to see Brandon here. All right, so let's bring back our master of ceremonies, Mr. Ben Price.
No, actually, I had to terminate him. It's Arnie here, and I told you that I'll be back. It's wonderful to see everybody.
Arnie, yeah, thank you for coming back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. Great to see you.
That's right. I have to get to the war on the machines, but it's nothing compared to the war on toilet paper. Trust me.
Love it. Super.
Let's do this.
Let's do it. Hey, Kara, who do we have coming up next?
Up next, we've got John Traver, Les Silver, and Technology and Tires with David Boyle and Jim Roche.
On the next, Dr. Phil.
Our next guest needs no introduction, but the reason he's here today, it's kind of perplexing. I mean, get real. Back in 1990, Arnold Schwarzenegger was filming Kindergarten Cop in Oregon when he became obsessed with military vehicle called the Humvee. It was a vehicle that became associated with the lifestyles of the rich and excessive, but then it kind of disappeared in 2020 when the last H3 rolled off the assembly line until now, and that's what he's here to talk about today. Arnold, how can we help you here today?
Hey, Dr. Phil, it's great to see you. Listen, it's really crazy times that we're in, but I'm not talking about politics anymore. I'm into survival. And when they first put the Humvee into the spotlight, it was like me, a powerful, large, aggressive barbarian who crushes his enemies. This vehicle was not for girly men. It was 6 feet high with 16 inches of ground clearance, powered by a General Motors DDA 6.2 liter V8 diesel and the 450 pound-feet torque. There's a lot of torque right there. But after the recession of 2008 hit, the KFC, the Humvee, they got completely erased.
Yeah, sort of like your political career, Arnold.
You're a funny guy, Dr. Phil. I like you. And that's why I'm going to put you last on my Christmas card list.
Yeah, okay. What about the news I heard that GM is bringing the Hummer back in 2021?
And that's why I'm here, Dr. Phil. Instead of bringing my beloved Hummer back as a real machine, they're making it all electric. Batteries and then plug into the wall. I just need to come here to let off some steam. Come on!
Everybody faces the challenge of finding meaning to their suffering, Arnold, but didn't you say you'd do anything to get the Hummer back on the market?
Yeah.
Is that right?
I lied.
Yeah, okay. What is your biggest concern?
Honestly, it's for all my friends in the fixed ops. There's no money in maintaining electric vehicles, and all my dealership friends will have to split.
Well, Arnie, I don't substitute anybody else's judgment for my own, but I have to disagree with you there. Every 7,500 miles, you still need to do a complete vehicle and systems check, rotate the tires, and maybe replace the cabin air filter. It's not much different in that respect to any other car,
Dr. Phil, come on. You're a pain in the neck.
Oh, come on. Isn't this about what's best for the customer? I mean, when I was practicing psychology, I used to tell myself, if I ever get to where I'm just doing this for the money or I'm just going through the motions, I'm going to quit.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Wait. Why are you leaving?
Because I didn't come here to be lectured. I came here for some compassion and some sympathy.
That sounds like an electric Hummer would be a perfect fit for you right now.
The worst thing that I can be is the same as everybody else. I hate
Well,
that.
you know, my dad back in Texas used to always say you wouldn't worry so much about what people thought about you if you knew how seldom they did.
Yeah, well, who's your daddy anyway? Modesty isn't a word that applies to me anyway. I hope it never will. Look, I just use my muscles as a conversation piece, like walking a cheetah down 42nd Street.
Okay, well, Arnold, that's about all the time we have today.
Wait. I want to tell the people at GM that I welcome and seek their ideas, but do not bring me the small ideas. Bring me the ideas that match our future, and the future isn't sustainable.
Okay, then, I guess we'll leave that one for next time.
This is our scanning system, which consists of a touchscreen computer and a 60-page per minute duplex scanner. I am going to show you how to scan a typical repair order. Bring up our dealer scanning application. Click on Repair Orders. Place the repair order in the scanner and click on the Scan Repair Order. This will start the scanning process, which will scan all pages front and back and automatically read the repair order number. After scanning is complete, the repair order number will be shown on the screen. For this example, the repair order number is 995957. You can now confirm that the repair order number matches the number on the screen. Then click OK, which converts the scanned pages into a PDF document and saves them into the system. To view the scanned pages, simply click on the View button, which will bring up the repair order where you can easily view and navigate all the scanned pages. You also have the ability to scan small items like battery test printouts or service coupons. Simply load the small items into the scanner and click the Scan Other Items button, and they will be scanned and added to the existing repair order. You can view the scanned items by clicking the View button where you can see the items at the bottom of the PDF document. It is simple. Now, I am going to show you how service advisors, accounting, warranty administrators, parts department, and technicians can easily retrieve the scanned repair orders. Each person will have the repair order viewer on their computer, which allows them to look up repair orders by repair order number, VIN number, or customer name. For this example, we will use the repair order we just scanned, which is 995957. Click Search. The scanned record will be shown, and by clicking on the scanned date, you can see the contents of the scanned repair order. Here, users can print or download or email the repair order document. It is simple. How much does this cost? You don't need to contact us or email us for a quote. We'll give it to you right now. $500 installation fee. $500 monthly service fee per unit. Unlimited scanning. No long-term contract, just month to month. Dealer scanning. Organize your dealership documents, saving time, space, and money.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Gene Girdley along with Ted Ings. And Ted, we have a current winner of the Best Practice Award with us today, John Traver.
That's right, Gene. We're so proud to have John Traver and honored of Traver Connect. John is a great friend of the Roundtable. John, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Ted, thank you. Gene, thank you. So good to be here.
John, who would have thought so many years ago when you and I met down in Houston at Gulf States Toyota and Gulf States Financial Services that we'd be here so many years later talking about service BDC, and all the opportunities on the fixed ops side.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed, but I'm thankful to be here. You know, and it's funny you say that because you talk about the past. And interestingly enough, Ted, just recently you had the guts to put out an old picture, right? There's our fearless leader with the strong stash, and he's got the quasi mullet going on. And that was pretty much then, wasn't it?
I miss that mullet, John.
Hey, brother, I do too. You know, the truth is I almost put up a picture of me because I really did have one. I don't know what happened between then and now, but, you know, here we are, right?
Here we are, my friend. All right, the floor is yours, John. Take it away.
I love it. Well, listen, I mean, that was then. And, you know, that kind of got me to thinking about back then, you know, 90s and 80s. Most of us remember great ad campaigns. One of them from circa 1984 was the old Wendy's Where's the Beef? There was a guy named Jay Abraham behind this campaign. Some of you may have attended some of Jay's events. I have had that opportunity. He's a brilliant mind. And where's the beef? It was their way of saying, hey, look, there's, your burger needs to have a certain amount of beef. Well, I got to thinking about that and I thought, geez, what a great way to sort of introduce ourselves into the Tire Summit's message here this month. The beef, I think, that we're looking for, regardless of your area of responsibility, whether you're a dealer, you're a business development manager, you're a FOD, you're a service manager, or you're a general manager, I think we're all looking for the same thing. We're looking for profitable revenue. And so the question is, how can we deliver that here today? And what I want to do is I want to show you how right now, through your fingers, as you're watching this short TED Talk, if you will, that there's about $1 million a year that is running through the fingers of the average 1,000 RO per month store through its incoming service calls. There's 5 pillars. And what I want to do is sort of get you to zoom out and look at each pillar today. And I'll show you what process, what system should be in place for you to maximize the opportunity there. In fact, I'm going to show you where that opportunity is being missed out on in service. Before I get started, I'm big on data. I mean, I feel like, what did Drucker say? When the facts are clear, the decisions jump out at us. And so it's really about having factual data. A lot of times numbers are thrown around and I'm not sure if I can trust them. So I'm going to assume you're like me and you want to know we can trust the numbers. So here's one of the sources that I use for establishing data and trends. This is NADA year-to-date through June this year. Average CP per repair order, customer pay is $329. Average warranty pay is $385. Effective labor rate, they're on the bottom at $131. That's important because today I'm going to use those as I share with you the 5 pillars and kind of counting up the missed opportunities. I owe you $1 million, right? That was our message today. Can I show you $1 million of lost opportunity in a 1,000 store? So let's get started. The very first pillar on the porch is going to be missed calls. Missed calls, no shocker there. Now, I'm not here to tell you what percent you're missing, but I would say there's call source, there's fix the phones by General Motors, there's call review, one of our vendors out there. There's all kinds of ways you can measure missed opportunities. The average, based on Google and Marchex mobile clicks, is 16 to 25% of incoming service calls are missed or offline. So what does that mean? Well, if it's just a 1,000 RO store, and by the way, the average store today is 1,525 ROs a month. So that's about 3/4 of this current average size service department. 16%, if I go on the low end, that's 160 missed opportunities per month. Now, I don't know if those people keep calling you back or not, but let's just assume on the low end, they don't. And you have about 30, 31 days in a typical month of that 22-hour working days. So if I missed out on 160 opportunities, that's a little over 7 a day. So the question is, you're asking yourself, how many missed calls do we miss a day in service? Now we're going to use those numbers, right? 329, 385. So we'll call it about a $350 blended missed opportunity. So let's do some math. They told us it was a numbers game when we got in this business. 350. And I'm going to use 3 missed calls a day, not 7. Even though we're doing the 16%, I really want to have your attention as we're starting to measure missed opportunities. 3 missed a day is $1,000 a day. It's 23 grand a month. It's over $250,000 a year in missed opportunities in a 1,000 RO store at 16% and cutting that actually in half at 8%. Actually, it's about 6% that we counted. We like to say you got to catch the calls, kind of like that home improvement show, Move That Bus. You got to catch the calls. So that's pillar 1. Pillar 2 is something my old boss taught me, Russ Darrow of Russ Darrow Automotive in Wisconsin. I was the training operations guy for that group, and Russ taught me a lot. One of the things he taught me in service, he said, John, he said, it almost should be on our balance sheet, but he said, unsold technician hours will eat your lunch. He said, you got to have systems. By the way, this was 1989. He's teaching me this, right? And so he was always ahead of the curve. And so, I look at unsold technician hours. And what I would tell you is, as we listen to typical calls coming into service today, there's definitely an appointment-minded approach as opposed to a job-minded approach. You hear a lot, oh, you can bring it in first thing in the morning, and we're just stacking appointments. Now, let me kind of build my case here because we're on pillar number 2. This really is about shop loading and shop flow. And, there's another pandemic going on in automotive, and it's called basically the flight of the technicians, and they're all leaving town. There's 10,000 technician jobs a year are being abandoned is what the numbers say. I don't have those numbers close to me, but that's what I'm reading. Here's the bottom line. If you hired me as a technician, you're closer to the fire than I am. But if you hired me, you probably told me you'd keep me busy. Am I right? Well, one of the ways to keep me busy is loading the shop. And so you say, oh gosh, that's difficult and this and that. Look, we're in a better place today. The vendors that are in the space have done a great job. The X Times of the world, the Time Highways, the DMSs, and our friends at Update Promise, scheduling tools that will blow your mind and allow you to load the shop to basically chase jobs, not just appointment. Here's the thing. The average shop has about 3 unsold hours a day. And I think I'm being conservative. So it's going to be the same numbers. 350 at 3 hours a day is 1,000. It's 23. It's another $250,000 a year. Unsold hours in the lane. All right. So pillar number 3, this one's going to surprise you. So this is your appointment show rate. So what I would do is I ask you this. Do you think it matters who or where your calls are answered? And the answer has to be yes. There's only 2 possible places they can be answered. One is in the drive, in the lane, and the other is not in the drive, outside of the drive. That could be your own team. It could be a hired virtual team, or it could be a combination of those 2, but it's not in the lane. The question is, does it matter? Well, let's take a look. I'm going to kind of let the cat out of the bag real quick here and say the answer is yes. The answer is, if you have your calls answered by a dedicated team, the number is 13%. The delta, you're going to have a 13% what? Higher show ratio. That's correct. There is a proven lift when you centralize your calls. Let me show you. I shared this with you last month if you were with us. This is an actual set of data from an X time screen that we do not control. And I want to show you 2 things. Number 1, you see where it says X time in dealership there on the screen? Those are appointments set by personnel in the dealership, but it also includes folks that drive up, didn't have an appointment, and they put them in. So it's slightly inflated. It's probably really a 60-some% number, 65, let's call it. Then over here, you have what they call X time call center. And that's basically the vendor they're using. In this case, we have access to this because this is one of our stores. I want you to see the delta between the 2, the 86 to the 73. That's very, very typical. The show rate is higher when we give somebody that specific task. Service BDC's got a 13% higher show rate. So every 100 calls, you got an additional 13 vehicles in a stall. Every 1,000 calls, it's another 130 ROs. At 350, folks, that's $45,000 a month. That's over $500,000 a year. I promised you $1 million. We're already there. The other thing, though, I want you to see is the incremental increase of ROs over year. So 130 a month at 12 months is 1,560. In that store, it's more than an extra month of ROs over the course of that 12 months. We call it a 13-month year. It's an extra month of ROs each year just because you made a decision to change how your appointments were going to be set, where those calls were going to be answered. It's sitting there. That's pillar number 3. Pillar number 4 is updated customer information. I walk into the optometrist. They check me in. Mr. Traver, your cell phone is still, your email is still, you still live at, yes. Little interesting because there's people here in the waiting room that can hear me, right? But this is a thing, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. We freely will update that information, but you and I have a problem because in this business, we market heavily, right? And what we know is there's a 3% response rate, pretty standard, that we agree to. So let me apply this to the business. The OEM recall list, we've all been working with them now for a number of years because of the amount of recalls. Those lists are missing somewhere between 30 and 50% of the needed information. The needed information. We may have an email, but it's no longer being used or it bounces. We have one phone number we can't get them to pick up, or it's been changed. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So the antidote to this is updating address, email, and phone numbers every time we interact with a customer. We can do that while we're setting service appointments. When we do outbound calls, another data point, 60% of the records we work with here have only one phone number. Well, we're willing to dial 3, but there's only one. So, you know, the other thing I hear often when we listen to our quality assurance team is they're confirming the email they see in the screen, one of our agents, and the customer will say, actually, no, use this email. I don't really check that one. It's almost like when they were asked for that email, they knew they were going to get spammed, and so they kind of gave us one they hardly ever check. I don't know, but I do hear that often. So the net result is this issue of not updating records, it affects all marketing. So if you're equity mining for the next vehicle sale, you know, that 3% is 3% of a smaller list. If you're working towards setting the next appointment and you're making outbound contacts, digital mail, ground mail, live calling, texting, look, it's a smaller list. You're trying to get 3%. So you want to increase the accuracy of the customer records. Look, here's what I would say. If you're not updating your records, your list is becoming aged by the day. It's becoming more and more inaccurate every day. You have to update it. So that should be an SOW, a statement of work, a standard process. I would, if I were you, assume at least 30% of your records are inaccurate, just to start there. And then let me give you a chunk. Let's just think in terms of 5,000 records. So if I sell 100 units a month, new and used, small store, 12 months a year, times 5 years, that's 6,000 records. That doesn't even count my repair orders, okay? So 5,000 records is a real small chunk. For every 5,000 records, 3% of that is 45 opportunities. So think about how many 5,000 record chunks you have in your store. At 3%, you're looking at 45 missed opportunities in every 5,000. That's not accurate. And 45 at 350, if that's per month, that's 16 grand. There's 189 grand and almost 200 grand just in accuracy. And you can solve this by updating that on the inbound call. So there's pillar 4. I owe you 5. So pillar 5 is the return on time and pre-selling when the call is coming in and we're handling this scheduled appointment opportunity. Now we've all, seen our share of Shark Tank. Might have been one episode. Maybe we're binge watchers, but we've also seen where Cuban and O'Leary and Robert Herjavec and Damon John and Lori Greiner, hey, I love your energy. I love your passion, but it's not really a business yet. My time is worth more than my money, so I'm out. Look, what I'm saying is, when time is worth something, and it's worth quite a bit, what I want to show you is think in increments of half hours. So for every half hour on the RO, we're talking about, potential impact here. So let me show you where the money is. Average labor rate, we looked at NADA is 131. Half hour would be $65. So the question is, how do we get there? There's 2 ways. Number 1, as that call comes in, hi, calling on an oil change and need my tires rotated. Certainly, be glad to help you. Let me do this for you. Let me see if there's also any open recalls, bulletins, and any recommended maintenance, so at least you know. Not a customer on the planet that's going to say no. They say yes. So we use a time mileage approach. You have real basic stuff there. We're not doing alignments over the phone. This is air filters. This is engine filters. This is K services. This is tire rotations. Real basic stuff. And those items right there can be built into that call and add $50, $60, $70 to a third to maybe even a half of your incoming calls. The other thing, the Shark Tank piece, when you take the calls out of the drive, you gifted them back with about 2 hours a day of freed up time. Each advisor now has time to walk the car, to talk with your customer, to listen, to understand, to sell green, yellow to red as they do their multi-point vehicle inspections. So they have the time now to sell. Between those two, there's a half hour or more in every store. And that 65 in a €1,000 store, folks, is $65,000 a month. That's $750,000 a year. Time is money. We know that. And that's pillar 5. So we promised, we said there's new revenue inside every call, right? And so here it is. Missed calls, $250,000. Unsold, missed calls probably more than that, by the way. Unsold, similar. Appointment show rate, that's a big number. Customer records, it's meaningful and it grows every year. And your return on time in pre-selling, a big, big number. We promised $1 million. There's $2 million, Ted. So, you put this all together and you say, what do we do next? You look at your incoming opportunities. You build out these 5 processes. If you're doing it on your own, you improve in these areas or get help to improve. And if you're looking for that partner, you make sure these are steps in that process that are going to be in place. Service BDC, we're looking for where's the beef, and guys, it's right in front of us.
John, if I'm a dealer watching this, you had me at hello. Pillar 1, the 3 missed appointments per day, and pillar number 2, the 3 unsold hours per day. Very, very low numbers, and again, common sense. And you always present it in such a great way. John Traver from Traver Connect here at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. John, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Ted. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Well, Ted, what we do here at the Fixed Ops Roundtable is go from one industry pioneer to another, and our next guest is no exception.
That's right, Gene. Les Silber is the executive chairman of Dynatron Software and Keeps Corporation, and a good friend of the Roundtable. Les, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thank you so much. Yeah, good to be here.
It's been amazing to see how this conference has grown, and we attribute a lot of that to you and a lot of the wisdom that you've shared, and our audience just loves the segments that you provide our group. So Les, thank you so much, and take it away.
Thanks so much, Ted. Gene used the term pioneer. I've often learned that the way to distinguish a pioneer is through the arrows in their back. And unfortunately or fortunately, there have been a number of arrows that have accumulated over the years. But I want to share something else with you guys today. And that's something that I put together many years ago. I've called it the 6-pack for success. Over the course of my career, I've been fortunate to be able to work with a number of people that have taught me some very important life lessons, particularly early in my career, that have influenced the way I've been able to approach business. And I've been sharing this with our staff over many companies over many years, and I thought I would share it with your audience today. So we call it the 6-pack for success, and each lesson here was contributed by somebody that was either an associate of mine or a boss of mine early in my career. And the first one is one that I'm sure all of you have heard before, and it's a staple in the auto industry, and it says that attitude is everything. My first boss was an individual, a man named Al Wiley. He was the dealer principal at Wiley Mercury in Winnipeg, Canada. That's where I grew up. And Al was a character. Al, like many dealers, got his early start in athletics. He was a football player. In fact, he was a lineman who played on the Grey Cup winning. Now, the Grey Cup, by the way, is the Canadian equivalent of the Super Bowl. He was on the Grey Cup winning Winnipeg Blue Bomber football team. And he was a lineman. And he had a interesting distinction, and that's he was able to play that position with a handicap of only having one eye. And he was an all-star, and he got past that handicap by having a very strong attitude towards everything that he did. I went to work in the dealership early in my career and had the opportunity to have attitude is everything beaten into me at a time when, quite frankly, my attitude wasn't so hot. And it was a wonderful opportunity to adjust that attitude because that is the core. Al didn't have clear sailing. In addition to his problem with his eye, he expanded the dealership business into the rental car business by picking up Hertz rent-a-car franchises in a number of cities. And unfortunately, that caused him to have to go broke. But using the attitude is everything philosophy, Al picked himself up, went working as a consultant in training salespeople, and then had the opportunity later on to buy another dealership, this time in Toronto, and was very successful in transforming a sleepy little dealership into a major dealership in the Toronto area. We learned a lot from Al. His attitude extended into the time when he unfortunately had a number of health problems with Parkinson's, and throughout his career, he made attitude is everything something that came to life. And I'm ever grateful for learning that important lesson. The second lesson came from my second boss. And if you can imagine a guy who was 6'6", large individual, tall individual, he was a Turk. And he had a Turkish beard, a goatee. And he would say, it's just as easy to think big as it is to think small. And learning that lesson early, I think has been instrumental in my willingness to attempt things at a grander scale than I might have otherwise. Mike put that into effect. He worked in the data center. This was in the computer business. And he worked in the data center in Manitoba for the telephone company. And a bid crossed his desk where the country of Saudi Arabia was looking for somebody to build or rebuild their telephone system. And Mike decided, hey, I may as well put my think big and think small philosophy into play. And he bid on and actually got the contract from small town of Winnipeg, 500,000 population. He won the contract to build the telephone system for the country of Saudi Arabia, which was an amazing feat. So when you think about what are you going to calibrate your expectations to, think about it's easier to think big as it is to think small. The third lesson came from my next boss, also in the computer business, a gentleman by the name of Ron O'Kane. Ron was a chain smoker. He was in the technology business, and he got there on an unusual path. He was a cop in Denver, Colorado, and then he went back to school and ended up taking education to become somebody knowledgeable in IT. And his lesson was probably the most difficult one of all. And that was, do you want to be right or do you want to be successful? And I was a young guy and I always wanted to be right. And Ron would say, do you want to be right or do you want to be successful? Knowing the difference is very important because sometimes our ego gets in the way of us wanting to be right, and we extend that wanting to be right over and above the objective that we're trying to accomplish in the first place. The objective is to be successful. The objective is not to be right. And if we have to set aside our ego in order to be able to learn lessons and adopt philosophies that will help you get to the goal line, you're better off to recognize success is the objective and being right. Nice if you can do both, but if you have to trade one for the other, you want to be successful. Keith Soley was my next boss, and Keith became a lifelong friend, still one of my best friends today. And Keith would say, shoot for the moon, but it's okay that if you only get into the high atmosphere. And balance high ideals with reasonable expectations. So set high and lofty objectives, but give yourself the out that if you don't quite get there, that's okay. You shot high, but you didn't quite get there. The expectations that are reasonable give you the opportunity to still feel successful because you really shot for a very high goal. The next one actually came from a guy that worked with me. His name was Don Lundgren, and Don was a very organized fellow. And he would he would call it business case logic to every problem that he came upon. What's the objective? What are the alternatives? What are the pros and cons of each alternative? And then make a choice. And he realized that you have to be selective. You can't do everything. So of the choices and the options that you have, you need to pick ones that have the highest value, and you need to stay focused. Because if you try to do too much, quite often you won't get anywhere. So remember that analyze carefully, choose the ones that have the highest impact, and be selective. The sixth one is one that Don pointed out, was my philosophy. And that philosophy, and this dated unfortunately prior to Nike, be better if I would have been able to trademark or copyright it, but my personal philosophy is one of action. Do it. You can often find yourself in an analysis paralysis where you can spend all kinds of time trying to figure out, hey, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? Until you jump into the pool, very often you really won't even know how deep it is and what you have to do to be able to move across it. And if you have a bias towards action, then you have a chance to understand the situation, analyze it carefully, but more importantly, do something about it. So these are the 6 lessons that I was able to learn early in my career. Others have added others since then, which have yet to make it to the list. But I thought I would share these with you. And I'd also share one more that I think is very important. This is something that I stole from an individual that I worked with at the data center who was a member of the IBM dealership team or data center team. And he said, remember the 7 times rule. And the 7 times rule states that people don't really understand what you're saying, what you're trying to teach them, until you've explained it 7 times. And that over the years has become a very positive source of inspiration for me for 2 reasons. One, when I'm working with any of my teammates and I'm trying to get them to understand a new concept, I have to realize that until I've told them 7 times, I can't expect that they really will understand it. So I need to have the patience to be counting in my head, well, there's 1, nope, they still don't get it. There's 2, nope, they still don't get it. And carry it forward to the 7 times that are necessary for understanding to actually happen. So it benefits me as a supervisor to remember the 7 times rule. It also benefits the people that are working with me to understand the 7 times rule, because if they understand that it isn't expected that they get it right off the bat, it gives them the authority and the power to ask more questions to make sure that they do understand it. One of the insights that you get of the 7 times rule, and I find this happens all the time, is I'm often listening to a song that I've heard probably 77 times, and only now do I hear the words. And you may have had that experience yourself, where you've hummed to or sung under your breath the words of a song, only to realize that for all your life you'd been saying it wrong. That happens when you get the repetition, sometimes 7, sometimes more. But understanding comes as a flash of insight. All of a sudden you understand it, and all of a sudden you now have the opportunity to put it into practice. So I'm hoping that these are going to be useful thoughts and ideals for you, and appreciate the opportunity to share. Have a great day.
Les, these are amazing fundamentals, not just in business, but in all of life. And the consistency in applying them. I have to ask you a question. Go back to the point you made about it's just as easy to think big as it is to think small. What are the risks there's going to be some risk, right, in thinking big? And how do you adjust if you realize that you're, let's say, in over your head? And how would you
first of all, I found that the pool of big thinkers is a lot less sizable than the pool of littler thinkers. So one of the benefits of thinking big is that you often have less competition. I don't know, Ted, whether when you started the Roundtable, you could possibly have anticipated that it would have gotten to be the size that it's gotten. But you took steps, incremental steps, to say, hey, why shouldn't this go to thousands of people? And have taken the steps to be able to make that happen. That's big thinking. You could have been still in a little hotel room somewhere, but instead you're now providing this insight and this forum to the industry at large. So whether you knew it or not, you applied it yourself.
I love the rules, and I love that 7 times rule as well. It's so appropriate, and it comes in handy in many things. So I love that. Les Silver from Dynatron Keeps here at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. Great job, Les.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Les.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. We're so excited about this next segment that we have coming up here at the Tire Summit. And we're going to welcome back David Boyle, who's the CEO of Tire Profiles in Dallas, Texas. And we also want to welcome a first-timer here at the Fixed Ops Roundtable, but certainly not a first-timer for this industry, automotive industry expert and author, Jim Roche. Gentlemen, welcome to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted. Great to be here. Great to be back. Good to see you. Good to see you again.
Yeah, David, I'm so impressed with the caliber of the folks we have speaking at the show today. So great job in helping to put this whole event together, including the concept of talking about the tires and, getting the focus on customer retention and just really taking the lead on that in the industry.
And, I will admit to you, Ted, that when we first talked about this back in, I think, February, and we talked about trying to do a whole one of these things on tires, there was probably a little bit of me that was worried, can we fill up a whole day on tires? Boy, we sure have done that, haven't we?
Yeah, that and then some. I think we could have gone a couple days.
Yeah,
hey,
probably.
Jim, I've been a big admirer of your work over the years. Congratulations on all the success you're having, and so honored that we have you here on the conference today.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you, Ted. We have a mutual admiration, so it's a pleasure to finally join you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, great to have you both. In this segment, we're focusing on technology and tires. And Dave, I want to kind of, frame this with you this way. We really see you here at the Roundtable as our tire and technology expert. I think you've earned your stripes in that regard. So in that context, tell us what role you think technology will impact the selling of tires at the retail level going forward.
Well, it would be too easy for me just to, give you the commercial on the company, and I'm not going to do that because, I think that most people know what we do, but I want to approach that from a different angle, Ted. I think that I want to talk about it from the consumer angle to start. There's 2 things I want to talk about. The world has changed. It's changed a lot in the last 6 months, obviously. But in the last 5 years, we're just in a different environment. Smartphones, Amazon, the internet, everything that we do has changed, and our consumers have changed along with us. And if we think that the idea of, a stick gauge and a conversation with someone, that starts with, my technician said you need this, is the way that most consumers want to interact with us these days, then we've got it wrong, in my opinion. Consumers are looking for a different type of engagement. They're looking for technology to play a role in how we communicate with them. We do everything on our smartphones today. I asked somebody the other day, when was the last time you were in a bank? And the answer is never. Between depositing checks and things like Venmo for cash, and we just do everything electronically nowadays, and dealers need to do that as well, I think. And it gives the dealers a potential huge competitive advantage over the aftermarket if they start to do stuff like this, because the dealers, in my opinion, will be able to deploy this type of technology more easily than the independent repair shops will. You've heard me say this before. In fact, I think I may have said it in one of our previous segments. I have a friend of mine who was now the former CEO of one of the largest aftermarket retail companies. And I asked him over dinner one night, I said, what worries you? And he didn't hesitate when he said the dealers. And his rationale behind that was that if they ever wake up and start to really be serious about this and employ the types of technology that a lot of people have talked about even today, on our roundtable, that when they do wake up and do that, they will put us out of business because they will be able to outspend us. They'll be able to outmanage us. They'll be able to outpeople us. And they will deploy technology that a lot of the aftermarket won't be able to afford to do. So this is an opportunity, I think, for dealers to use that advantage and change the way we interact with the consumer.
And if Dave, if I may, I think there's a great degree of trust that's built up when using technology with today's consumer. And, the fact that consumers trust that printout or seeing that visual as opposed to just hearing it, let's say from their service consultant or advisor. What do you think about that?
For sure. I mean, trust is the number one thing that they want. Trust, price, and convenience, and convenience and trust are ahead of price, in the research that we've done. And trust is a big factor of this. And having something that's perceived as being neutral or independent, it's a piece of technology, it's a tool, whatever, that is giving them the information. And then most importantly, empowering the consumer to educate themselves and make the informed decision, as opposed to you've heard me say this before numerous times, we want to put the customer in a situation where they're buying as opposed to being sold to. And that's one of the big things, if you think about it, that Amazon provides, right? I mean, we've all bought something. I think I bought something an hour ago off of Amazon. I mean, we've all bought stuff off of Amazon, and it gives us the ability to shop at will at our fingertips, gives us the ability to research, to look at multiple products by different manufacturers and things like that. That's the beauty of it. The second thing I want to talk about, Ted, though, is the data angle of this, because that's the other piece that I think is the importance behind deploying technology, and that is the data. Data is power. Data is control. Data is control in this, and having the ability to have data and metrics around managing the people, the process, the customer, in terms of managing that whole relationship with the customer is sort of the second piece of this that I think is required. If you really want to do this and be successful at this, we have to be able to give shop managers and dealers and things like that the ability to monitor the process, manage their people, manage the execution of the process, and then manage that relationship with their customer. You've heard me say this. I think that one of the biggest opportunities that dealers have in tires is not the customers that are coming through the door. That is an opportunity, and it's there, and it's in front of them. But if you think about the opportunity holistically from a tire perspective, it's the smallest piece of their opportunity. I say to dealers all the time, think of every car that you've ever sold. Every one of those customers needs tires, and every one of those customers is going to buy tires from someone. The question is, are they going to buy them from you? That really is the question that we need to be asking ourselves, and we need to be giving dealers the ability through technology to be able to reach those customers that are not necessarily in some cases coming back in for service, customers that may have defected long ago. Can we give dealers the ability to re-reach those customers and to get them to come back in and consider the dealer for their tires? Those are the two things that I think there's lots of things that I think technology plays a role in this, but giving the consumer what they want and then giving the dealerships the tools to manage the process, I think are the two things that I personally think are probably 1 and 2 when it comes to reasons why you should deploy technology. Jim, you want to add anything to that?
Sure. I don't think here's some interesting metrics from my first book, Fast Lane. Those are driven by market research. The first is we know that about 32% of all service visits, not just tires, but service visits in the United States take place at a dealership. So roughly a third. And that's really interesting, put in the context of the dealer sold every single new vehicle that's on the road. 57% of dealers said that retention is their number one priority. And just to be clear, they didn't say it's a concern or it's one of my priorities. It's their number one priority. And then when you drill down into that a little bit, 91% said that they felt that the experience in service was more important than the actual physical service itself. Almost unanimous. So those are some very compelling statistics. But then when you ask the final question of the dealers and service leaders, how many of you today have technology, have systems that enable a superior experience? 86% say they do not. And I think that is the fundamental disconnect. We know we need to have retention. We know we need technology to do it, but we're not investing in it yet.
Jim, I've seen your work over the years on metrics in a number of different venues. And, it's just amazing some of the stuff that I've seen you present. This technology component and the trust and the experience, on the part of the customer, it can really be unparalleled at the dealer level. And, when we lose them, when they defect because of that first purchase of getting a new set of tires and they do it somewhere else, it really, takes away that huge opportunity that our dealers have.
You take away the present opportunity, all the future service opportunities at an average gross of 46%, plus all the opportunities to sell them another car. And if you think of the lifetime value of that, it's just, we're all three of us are on this call doing some variation of shaking our heads. But it is a compelling reason to reevaluate the technology that you have that's customer facing in service.
And Jim, we've got to make sure that as a dealer, that we're really in the tire business. Do we have tires in stock? Do our frontline personnel believe in tires? We heard Tully Williams a little bit earlier, Dave, talk about, our people have to believe in the tires. And, the tires are that lead into that most profitable product that we have as a dealer, Jim, which is the labor sale on all the things that are going to happen coming up.
Undoubtedly, you have to view the customer holistically. Dave and I in a conversation, we're kind of chuckling about, the thing you hear commonly is, I don't want to be in the tire business. It's a low margin. When was the last time you walked into a grocery store and filled up the cart, and when you went through the checkout line, they said, well, we're going to sell you the steak, but we're going to set the milk to the side and recommend you get that someplace else. It's ludicrous, right? Yet, to some degree, that's what dealers are saying when they say, I don't want to be in the tire business, but I want you to come back to me for some of the other stuff. You just shake your head. So it is truly remarkable. But luckily, circumstances are driving some fast change in the industry.
But go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say to build on this. We know every one of us in this meeting are consumers. We know that we want a technology enhanced experience. It's not a nice to have anymore. We manage our lives with these devices. Ted, we're sitting here, and while we're talking with one hand, I could buy 2 round trip tickets to China. So the idea,
with your thumb, right? Yeah.
It just wouldn't even have to be looking. I just glance down a couple of times. Consumers not only want it, but they expect it. And we put dealers at a disadvantage when we don't deliver it. There's a couple of interesting statistics. We know that dealers, I'm coming back to tires, that the dealer share of the tire market is around 9%, right? Single digits, which is just is really cries out for improvement. 80% of dealers today check tires visually or by taking manual measurements, right? Only 20% are using some form of automation. I don't think those two statistics they are connected, right? And so you want to drive some more tire penetration. You want to get above single digits. You've got to embrace some form of automation because that's what consumers want.
Jim, you've written a couple books on car dealers and retention, and tell us how you see this playing out. How's technology going to play a role in the selling of tires as it relates to retaining customers? How's that going to go?
Well, I agree with Dave. I think dealers are better positioned to acquire and deliver technology. Typically speaking, your franchise dealership is already a more high-tech type of operation than the mom and pop or the independent. Their advantage is they're local. They're typically more neighborhood oriented, and they may know the clientele on a more personal basis. All the research shows, even though this is really doesn't seem to be embraced in the mainstream, we know that dealer pricing, generally speaking, is on par with the independents. So by delivering a technology enhanced experience, dealers are going to get ahead of the independents. And by doing it with tire sales, I think it improves credibility. And of course, it improves the experience, which means that we're going to see more retention. The last figure I saw showed that about 40% of new vehicle buyers are millennials. Well, we all know how millennials manage their lives. We've all got kids. My daughter's 23, and she manages every aspect of her life using technology. So it seems to me to be a no-brainer that embracing technology will drive more tire sales, and that will drive more retention. A couple of other statistics for you based on research that we did in 2019. About 50% of consumers who bought tires from a dealer said that the dealer was their number one option for their next tire purchase, right? So we're talking about retention. There's something that drives to the heart of that. We also know that when about a third of tire purchasers also got an oil change, and about 25% of those also had an alignment. So we know that when you enable that tire purchase, it enables not only downstream sales, but immediate additional labor sales.
Dave Boyle from Tire Profiles, thank you so much for all your contributions to the fixed ops community and what Tire Profiles does to help take the lead in that technology at the dealership level. And Jim Roche, thank you. We're so honored to have you here. I've got one of your books. Where do we get your books?
Well, they're available on Amazon if you'd like to purchase them online. Or Ted, if you'll send me an address, I'll be happy to mail you one, because I've got boxes of them right here.
All right. We're looking forward to it. And Jim, we're looking forward to having you back on the roundtable as well. Thank you so much.
It's my honor. Thanks you again.
Thanks, Ted. Appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. And coming up next, let's bring back Kara DeLaine in, and maybe, Ted, another special surprise guest.
Well, Kara, that was great. We saw David Boyle back from Tire Profiles, and first time here at the Fixed Ops Roundtable, Jim Roche, who's another icon in the automotive industry. What'd you think?
I think it's great. I keep learning more and more every time. And believe me, I never thought I'd know so much about service and parts.
I think one of the things we're doing is we're making fixed ops attractive. I mean, the work you do at Henson brand dealerships, you're talking about selling cars and the sales of vehicles, right? But now we're talking about the things like tires and batteries and brakes, and that's maybe not so attractive, right? But we're doing our best.
Fixed ops is a beauty of its own.
Woo, love that. We're going to quote that. All right, we'll trademark that one. Watch out, Eric. All right, let's bring back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable our master of ceremonies, Mr. Ben Price.
Actually, it's Robert De Niro here, and I'm just sorry. I just have to say I can't talk in this thing. So let me tell you guys, I don't want to talk politics right now, because there's someone, you guys know I would like to beat. I would like to get this guy. I would like to beat him down to the ground. But here's something else I'm going to do. We're going to beat cancer, okay? So we're going to do this. There it is on the screen. Take up the $50,000 Dealers versus Cancer Challenge, okay? So give today. I am watching you. Give today. Send an email to dealersvcancer@dealerlaw.com. I'm watching you.
That was great stuff. And that's all part of our friends at Belavia Blatt, dealerlaw.com, Leonard Belavia. Carol, who do we have coming up next?
Next, we've got PermaShield Panel and Ken Lohr.
With new traction software from TPI, the consumer will receive the results of their tire and alignment check sent directly to their smartphone. As soon as the tire scan is complete from either the Groove Glove handheld scanner or the TreadSpec drive-over scanner, the results of the scan are sent to the consumer via text message. By clicking on the link in the text, a personalized interactive tire health report is generated for their vehicle. Each tire's condition is displayed showing the appropriate color based on the amount of wear. If they click on the tire, the wear profile is displayed for the tires on that axle. Showing the side view of the profile, color-coded based on wear, has proven to be the most effective way to graphically show the consumer what they need and help increase sales. If the vehicle needs an alignment or rotation check, the inspection icon will be illuminated either by the steering wheel or the rear axle. The alignment page graphically shows, using video animation, what the problem is: toe or camber wear. The TireWise Assistant helps explain why doing an alignment or rotation is important. With Traction, your customers can shop around right in your waiting room. They're gonna do it anyway, so why not make it easy for them and control the process? By selecting the Shop Around icon, the consumer will be able to see competitor prices. Our state-of-the-art software pulls from pre-selected competitors their current prices for the same tire or alignment service you quoted. Research shows that the vast majority of customers are going to price shop you. Our software allows you to control who they shop, what they shop, and when. You don't need to be the cheapest, but you need to be competitive, and you need to make sure they're comparing apples to apples. And most importantly, if they're not, you need to have the opportunity to educate and explain. You can't do this if they leave and go home and shop around. The web-based e-tread tracker report also makes it easy to pass this information around. So, with one click, the person in your store can send all the same information to a spouse or parent, so a joint decision can be made. Not everyone will buy that day. In fact, the data shows that roughly 50% will need more time to think about it. You must have a way to follow up with these customers, or you'll risk losing them to a competitor. And we all know if you lose them for tires, you run the risk of losing them forever. The Management Reporting module in Traction produces a suite of reports that gives you actionable data to help manage this process. Missed sale opportunity reports, future yellow tire, marketing reports, and most importantly, a scorecard that shows how you're doing and how each of your people are doing individually. The old saying, "Inspect what you expect," gets a 21st century upgrade with Traction, with fully automated reporting that allows management to easily and actively manage this process. It's the ultimate tire and alignment selling solution for dealers. Traction, powered by TPI.